In this video, we're going to show you how to install the CV axle on your Ford Explorer on the driver's side front wheel. Using a 19mm socket, loosen and remove the lug nuts. Once you have the lug nuts removed, grab the wheel, remove it, and set it aside. Use a 21mm socket to loosen and remove the tie rod end nut. Follow your ABS wire up here to the side of the strut. We're going to use our trim tool. You want to go ahead and pop this little retainer out and then pull this wire out of the side of the strut. You want to be careful when doing this here. Do not yank on the wire. Gently rock the rubber insulator off. Using a 32mm socket, go ahead, loosen and remove the axle nut. Now you can use a punch or an air chisel right here in the very center of this dimple here on the axle. What we want to do is go ahead and break the splines free from the hub itself. So basically you just want to loosen this up by pushing on it. I can't get that axle to go in. This will allow us here to go ahead and pull that knuckle out and work that axle free from the wheel hub. Using a 5/16 socket here, let's go ahead and loosen the strut nuts. Go ahead and get that bottom one as well. Let's go ahead and tap these bolts. Now be careful when you're separating this here because the whole knuckle and everything is going to be supported on the lower ball joint and it's going to want to fall forward. A couple things you want to pay attention to. Make sure it doesn't fall and pull on this here. And two, don't let it fall and pull on the flex hose for the front caliper. So I want to be careful with this here when we're doing this job. Go ahead and rock this, pull the bolt out, do the same for the top. So we went ahead and we put a securing strap up on the strut here and it comes down to the upper stud on our knuckle here. Now this is just basically going to take some of the slack off. We can go ahead and turn this to the side. It's going to relieve pressure on our flex hose here, and there's nothing on our ABS. Now we have a catch can or bucket underneath the vehicle because when we go to separate the inboard part of this CV axle right here, you might have some transmission fluid come out. Now we're going to put our pry bar between the back end of the CV axle and a little bit up against the transmission. Just give it a quick little jolt, and you can see that it just popped out like that. Go ahead and pull that out. Get that bucket underneath. Okay, pull that out. We're going to feed the axle up above the power steering rack. Then we can go ahead and work our axle out of the wheel hub. Work this out through the front side and pull that axle out. Now on the inside here we have our axle seal. I'm going to go ahead and give this a wipe. Now it is still draining a little bit, but what we're doing is we're inspecting the seal itself. You're going to look for any tears or anything like that, or maybe previous signs of this leaking where you'd want to go ahead and replace this. Now ours was actually in good shape. And go ahead and get our new axle and get that ready to install. And we're going to feed our new axle up. Get that up above the steering rack. We're going to feed our axle down. Now we went ahead and put some anti-seize compound on the splines here. Feed this down into our wheel hub. Get that lined up and push that in. Now we can go ahead and grab our CV axle. I'm going to go ahead and line this up. This is going to require you to kind of work that knuckle in that axle up and in. Let's go ahead and lift this up and get one bolt in. That has now relieved all the pressure from anything hanging and dangling. So we're going to put a jack under our control arm. And what we're doing is we're going to go ahead and compress our suspension. Now what we're doing is trying to line up the splines on our CV axle into the inside of the transmission. And sometimes it feels like it's binding a little bit. So what we're going to do is we have an assistant on the other side. And what they're doing is they're grabbing the wheel hub or the wheel area and they're rotating it back and forth to go ahead and get the inside part of the transmission to line up with the splines while we go ahead and tap in the axle. So go ahead and rotate that. You can see that moving back and forth, and we'll tap this in. And we can see that that is now fully seated. You can feel around the back side, the axle is right up against the transmission. Now what we'll do is take some spray solvent and spray the base side of the transmission here. And the reason for this here is what we're doing is we're going to look for any residual transmission fluid that's going to be coming out here, showing us that there is an axle seal leak. Ours is clean, so we're going to continue. Our axle is fully seated here. And we'll go ahead and come out to the outside here and install our axle nut on the outside. Now at this point here, we're just going to go ahead and throw our axle nut on. We're not going to tighten it, we're just going to get it in place. Go ahead and lower the jack. And remove that all together. So we're going to install our lower knuckle bolt here. Tap those through. Go ahead and install the nuts. Now at this point we can remove our securing strap. Go ahead, tighten down the nuts here. Let's go ahead and gently snug that down. Install your ABS wire. Torque down our tie rod end to 111 foot-pounds. Torque down our two strut nuts here to 184 foot-pounds. Do the same for the lower. Go ahead and snug down the axle nut. I'm going to install two lug nuts. Thread them down as far as you can. And these lug nuts are going to be side by side here. And the purpose of this here, we're going to use the pry bar to stabilize this here while we torque down the axle nut. We want to torque down our axle nut to 258 foot-pounds. Once that's torqued, go ahead and remove the lug nuts. Grab your wheel. Get that lined up and installed. We're going to get all of our lug nuts started by hand. Once we have these on, we'll go ahead and snug them down. Torque your lug nuts to 100 foot-pounds. Now that we have the CV axle installed, you want to go ahead underneath the hood, and we're going to locate our transmission dipstick or fill tube area, and it's right between the air filter box and is down inside here. So you're going to reach down, twist that counterclockwise, and then grab that cap and pull it up. Now on here is going to give you a level of that transmission fluid. I'm going to give this a quick wipe. And it has a max mark on there, so it should be at the top of this hash mark right here. If you roll it over, it says hot. So this means what you want to do is start up the vehicle, let it run for about 10 minutes, cycling that transmission from park through the gears once in a while, let that warm up. Then you want to go ahead and check that level. Now while the vehicle is warming up, you want to have this cap installed. If you want to, you can do a short drive and then come on back and check this out. Leave the vehicle running in park. Pull this back up and out. Check that level, and it should be right where it's at here. If the engine is warm and your level is at hot, then you're all set. If the level is low, you want to go ahead and use a funnel and use the appropriate transmission fluid to go ahead and fill up to that level. At that point there, you're all set.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.